Today, let us learn merits and demerits of deficit budget and surplus budget. Merits of deficit budget. It is inevitable for the developing countries for its economic development. These countries have natural wealth and suffers from lack of capital. Due to poverty, it is difficult to get speedy economic development with the help of domestic savings. In this situation, development is possible with the help of natural wealth through deficit budget. Second is when low economic activity takes place, government spends more in the economy for investment and creating employment. Deficit budget is necessary to create employment opportunity when economy is facing crisis. The burden of tax reduces in deficit budget because to meet the increased expected expenditure, if deficit is not supplemented, then tax needs to be increased. In developing countries, necessary finance required to fulfill education, health, etc. Basic services is acquired by such budget. It is also helpful to reduce economic instability. Now let us see to the demerits of deficit budget or limitation of deficit budget. There is freedom in framing deficit budget, so government many a time increase unnecessary expenditure and does not economize its administrative expense. It means government's expenditure is not in control. In deficit budget, the additional expenditure increased by the government can be met by increasing tax burden on public, but due to the fear involved in public opposition, government takes the help of public debts. So, the future generation has to face the burden of debt. Government gets the opportunity to use the money earned from tax non-competently. There is a situation of inflation as money supply increases in the economy due to deficit budget. The use of deficit budget is made to meet government's non-productive expenditure instead of development-oriented work. Thus, country's development hinders. So we can say that in case of high deficits, it can also be concluded that the tax revenue collected from public is going in wasteful expenditure. Now let us learn the merits of a surplus budget or benefits of surplus budget. If the inflation is at an extreme level in any country, then surplus budget becomes helpful to control the situation of the economy and makes it normal. Government collects money from the public in the form of tax. So the purchasing power reduces and controls the inflation. If the government expenditure increases in the surplus budget, government does not require to take help of public debt. In this type of budget, current expenditure is satisfied by current tax revenue. So government need not to borrow loan. So in future, to repay the loan, there is no burden of increasing tax. Thus, future generation do not suffer from tax burden. Economic stability is maintained in surplus budget. Now let us see the demerits of surplus budget or limitation of a surplus budget. In this type of budget, on one side, government has to increase tax revenue, so people do not have money for investment. Thus, economic development is hindered. In such budget, second option is to reduce expenditure, and thus there is cut down in public expenditure. So social development and welfare program is not met properly, which leads to negative effects on welfare and development. It is also difficult to cut down the public expenditure. In that situation, government rolls back the financial aid or subsidy given, which is very difficult according to political vision. If the reduction in expenditure is not desirable, then tax revenue needs to be increased, which is also difficult, a situation where opposition from public is faced. In the times of depression, surplus budget holds the money, so it negatively affects investment, employment and production. It is also a question to what extent the surplus be increased.